These outstanding qualities lead to successful student outcomes both in and outside the classroom. Our elementary student of the month is a second grade student from Andy Woods Elementary School, here with some of his very best friends.
We're Andy with Frank, and we're here with Jack, the student of the month. Yay!
Whether in the classroom or on a field, Jack Bryans is a ray of light. He has an impact on just about everyone he meets, and it shows.
He helps me, if I'm, kind of just bored, he'll, come over, and he'll be like, let's do something. He'll want to read a book or something like that, and it makes me feel happy, because he's in school as well. Whenever we get in eye contact with him, he usually tries to push his wheelchair our direction so that he can say hi to us. When I'm sad, Jack makes me feel happier. It's fun. When I'm bored, he comes and plays with me. I play with him.
Despite his challenges, Jack has an infectious, positive attitude and keeps moving forward. The love and support he receives from his Andy Woods family is why he loves being at school.
Jack loves learning and he loves to be at school. He never complains about anything. He's willing to try and do, and he has a smile on his face while he's doing it. He is the true epitome of what joy is and what joy looks like. He does everything with tons of energy and tons of laughs and tons of smiles. And he's a unique little boy because it's 10 times harder for him to do things than an average student, and he perseveres and he tries and he does until he is successful and succeeds, and it's a joy and it's amazing to watch him.
Our secondary student of the month is a 7th grader at Birdwell Dual Language Immersion School.
My name is Noe, and I'm the district's secondary student of the month for me.
Noe has spent his entire public education career at Birdwell.
It feels like I'm really old, and I already know the entire school.
It's quiet. It's quiet.
This meeting of the Tyler ISD Board of Trustees was previously called to order. The presence of a quorum has been established, and the meeting has been called and duly called. The notice of the meeting has been posted in the time and manner required. Thank everybody for coming out tonight. As always, we will start this meeting with the prayer and the pledge. Ms. Atkins.
Let us stand. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thank you for this day, for this is a day that you have made, and we will rejoice therein. Thank you for these thy people. Thank you for our community and the people therein. Provide for us, make ways for us, protect and unite us. Look on Tyler ISD, the superintendent, the administrators, teachers, staff, parents, guardians, but most importantly, our students. Help us identify what is not working. Help us develop an action plans and execute them well. Help us to be clear and consistent, to speak with one voice concerning the needs of Tyler ISD. Help us plant seeds in our students that will grow tremendously throughout this universe. As a board, Let us be right in our actions, our motives, our aspirations, and in the deep recesses of the thoughts of our minds. As we prepare for a new school year term, help the parents and students of Uvalde and other areas where mass shootings have occurred. Only you can mend and bring comfort to a broken heart. Equip parents and educators everywhere with the necessary tools to help us feel safe and secure as we embark on the 2022-23 school term. We know that all things work together for good to them that love the Lord. It is in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Atkins. We do have some action coming out of executive session. We will consider approving and hiring an executive director of financial services. Dr. Crawford.
Mr. Washman, trustees, it's my pleasure to recommend Ms. Casey Russell for the executive director of financial services. The way our structure works is we have a deputy superintendent of finance of operations, our CFO, that's Tasha Bjork. She could not be here tonight due to some personal time she's requested, and I don't blame her. So very proud of Tasha and the way she runs her stuff. Casey Russell is the recommendation for you tonight. You can see her resume was in front of you tonight in executive session. She has quite a bit of experience here in Tyler ISD. She does have her CPA, as what we always we look for whenever we start talking about executive positions inside of our financial services department. Also experience outside of the district as the assistant director of finance in Kilgore ISD as well. So Casey Russell as our recommendation for executive director of financial services.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Crawford. Do I have a motion on that item?
I move we approve the administration's recommendation of Casey Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Burkeville. Do I have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Dr. Nation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. The motion carries. Congratulations, Mrs. Russell.
Ms. Russell, come on up.
Good evening, President Washman, Dr. Crawford, and Board of Trustees. I wanted to take this time to say thank you for this opportunity. Growing up, my mom was the CFO of Jacksonville ISD, and so school finance is all I've ever wanted for my career. And so to be able to do that in a city that I love and at a district with such an outstanding reputation for their financial statements is a huge blessing, and I'm very excited and grateful for this opportunity.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to public participation. Nobody signed up tonight, so we'll go ahead and move down the agenda to the approval of minutes. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the minutes of June 2nd, June 9th, and June 20th.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Okay, moving into our continuous improvement and student outcomes update. We have a couple of updates. One on career and technology education certifications and STAR and EOE summary. So we're definitely riding a wave of successful student outcomes this summer. So go ahead and tell us about what's going on with CTE.
Board President Washman, Dr. Crawford, and board members, appreciate the opportunity to share some update on our CTE certifications. Just kind of a refresher on the Successful Student Outcome Goal 3. This specifically relates to Strategy 2. It says we're going to look to increase the number of our graduates that are earning industry-based certifications each year. This goes back 3 years ago when the goal was set, but from the baseline of 1909 to by 2026 be at 29.4. We obviously are going to try to project it and move beyond that. If you go back to the first year, the class of 2019, and this is lag data, but these are actual class of 2019 numbers. So just as we're looking at the numbers, 21.3% of the graduates in that class had earned an industry-based certification. And then you look at the following year, a couple of years ago, we were at 26.3%, which was really approaching getting close to the target goal. And this is a projection, but the class of 2021, which I think this becomes official in August with the report that comes out in the fall. I believe I'm right. But the number that we're looking at, just based on PEIMS data and what we've gotten from the state, is going to be at 41.7. So we're moving that needle forward. And I can say, just looking at the class of 2022, just a couple of months ago left us, we expect for that number to increase again from that group. We'll come back the following year. This is just a reminder and just a couple of updates on college and career readiness. First of all, the college readiness side, which we're not really going to get into tonight, that really hasn't changed. It still deals with AP exams, passing and earning that college credit through AP exams. It's dual credit, and then it's the college readiness exams, the TSI, the ACT, and the SAT. On the career readiness side, there have been some changes since the goal was set. One of the things, and they've changed a couple of different times, I'll try to be brief in my explanation, but so the class of 2021, the state removed the indicator that allowed us to give partial credit for students who would stay in a CTE program. Some of you will remember that we called it a coherent sequence, CTE concentrators and completers, and we actually could get college and career readiness credit for that. Well, they removed that for the class of 2021. And now they've come back, and we don't have the final verdict or the rules from TEA yet, but based on what we believe is going to happen, they're going to bring that back in, that partial credit for a concentrator and a completer, but it's going to look different. Meaning that what we are projecting, it's not set in stone yet, is that we're going to get partial credit for the student in the coursework and partial credit for the industry-based certification. It's not going to be an all or nothing proposition. We feel like that we're well positioned to manage that change once it becomes official, but I just wanted to make you aware. And then the one thing you won't notice on here is the military readiness, and I've shared that before. The state has removed that with this most recent graduating class, that those are no longer indicators. So we really are just calling it college and career readiness. Obviously still preparing students for enlistment in the military, should they so choose to do so, but that's no longer an indicator. For this report, we're going to focus on the IVCs specifically, though, of where we are. So if you look at this past year, all combined for all of our students in the high school setting, and it leans very heavily towards the junior and senior year as they're culminating their CTE coursework. We had 870 industry-based certifications that were earned by students, and that's just a couple of pictures. Obviously, we could have slides and slides and slides of students, and this is always an exciting time when they get to print their certificates off with their name and whatever they've earned. It's Pet Tech at the bottom, and there's some business certifications at the top. To drill down a little further to the specific certifications that students were earning this year and did earn, patient care technician, which comes out of our health science department, we had 31 students earned that certification. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration 30-hour course, which is something employers are more and more telling us they'd like to have students have that when they come in. It sets them apart. We had 82 students earn that. The Microsoft Office Specialist, which comes out of our business, accounting, finance, marketing strand, 101 students that earned that certification. The Automotive Service Excellence, Refrigerant and Recovery, 107, that's from auto mechanics and auto collision repair. It's a foundational course for students that are moving through that pathway. Certified EKG Technician, 136 students, and that's, of course, in the health sciences pathway for students that are going to use that as they move forward. And then the highest achieving number, 175, were the National Center for Career Education and Research, Core Level 1. This feeds into welding, metal fabrication, manufacturing, construction science, there's several programs of study that this is a beginning. From there in NCCER, students can go to electrical, plumbing, and there's several very specific things that students can earn as they move forward. There are others. This makes up, when you look at this list, a little over 70% of the certifications earned, but we have others. We have pharmacy technician that students earned. We have emergency medical technician that students earned. We have a couple of new certifications that are coming online that we hope we can get in place. And one, I don't mind mentioning this, we're working with the county on the jailer certification to see if we can't incorporate that as a dual credit course in the high school setting where they can get the certification and be employable right out of high school.
And they're making pretty good money.
Very good money and high demand.
High demand, and you can get a job right out of high school. I know it sounds crazy, as a jailer.
Yes.
While you're working on going to school. I mean, the sheriff's department, sheriff's deputy cornered me one day and said they've got some college kids that are actually working as jailer, making a good salary and getting their associates at TJC.
Exactly right.
It's okay. Good.
Yes. Anyway, that's basically my report of where we are at this point in the year, ready for another year.
Good stuff. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Brown?
Mr. Brown, there are some certifications that are not recognized, right?
There are quite a few certifications that we deem to be important in all areas that are not included on the actual list that TEA has approved. So we also work on those as well, and we do CPR certification, a number of things in construction, and we do some different welding certifications. We're going to add plumbing this year. That's a new program that's getting started up. Some things. So yes, there are quite a few. We did not include those in this report, though. This is just the state recognized.
So what percentage of the students you said that are receiving the certification prior to graduating?
What percentage?
Right. Do you have a general idea of the population of the campus versus the number?
If you go back in this last, I want to say that we were approaching, well, of just the certifications, it was about a third.
Okay.
So when you looked at that 41%, that projection, the majority of that college and career readiness is being obtained through CTE certifications. And then, of course, there's the dual credit, all the other components that are met as well.
Okay.
So go back to that slide on the class, like the very first slide. There we go. The class of 2021 is projected to be at 41.7%. Goal is 29.4 by 2026. So we're surpassing that right now. And that is without any type of help on the coherent sequence, right? This class?
This one is not receiving that help.
Right.
And so we feel, so that was really, honestly, had we had this, I didn't put that information, had we kept the same formula intact, that number would have exceeded 50%.
Yeah.
But we removed that and still were able to.
Yeah, I remember when when Texas instituted this, we thought we were going to make a living off the coherent sequence of courses because we're talking about another standardized exam for somebody to take. But our kids are exceeding our expectations on that without the coherent sequence of courses. Even though we still encourage kids to do that, we want them to take that accounting 1, accounting 2, 3, and 4, architecture 1, 2, 3, and 4, all the prerequisite courses. But this is without that help, though. That's impressive.
We do. I just want to make sure I say this, though, that just for the sake of the teachers and the counselors, we certainly encourage the CTE coherent sequence because that they're able to maximize their opportunities to get all the way to the practicum level where we can put them out in the workplace in clinical rotations, working in offices, working on the job their senior year if they'll stay with a particular program of study. So that's really important.
Yeah, and I think we've helped ourselves outboard on, we only get one opportunity to educate kids. We've said that before up here. So this stuff about, going to class until only 11:30 in the, just half a day, and then you get the rest of the day to kind of go chill out at home and then maybe come back for baseball practice or whatever. Those days are over. And I know that was kind of a thing that maybe even some of y'all enjoyed when you were going through school here in Tyler ISD, but when you get to your senior year, we really try to get them to that fourth year course to make that happen. That was one discussion we had about our senior seminar course as well, was we're supposed to educate our kids, or our students, excuse me, I hate being called kids. We're supposed to educate our students. We only get one shot at that. So giving them everybody and anybody early release I don't think helps us produce good citizens. They may be happy and the parents may be happy because they don't have to listen to the kids or their own kids complain about that. But I think that's paying off here as well, that they're still taking that coherent sequence of courses. And now that it's coming back into the fold, we want to make sure that we get back to that same mentality.
Okay. Question, in regards to the goals that we have established, when we exceed those goals, do we continue it until 2026, or do we change our goals?
I think we can relook at those.
Okay. I
Look
just
at
wanna-
modifications, or
Okay.
I know we've done it before on other things.
That's good. That's great.
Absolutely.
Very impressive. The concern is individuals that do not sit for the certification, they graduate from the program with the knowledge. Apparently, they have a choice as to whether they take the certification exam, right?
Certainly, I mean, it's strongly encouraged, if a
Right.
student stays in 4 years, we're going to expect that they sit and work towards that certification.
Mm-hmm.
But they still are getting the learning, the skill training, and the knowledge, and the practicum experience alongside that,
Okay.
even if they don't choose to do the certification.
A couple of observations. I'm proud that it appears we're making this a part of just our secondary education culture. And it looks like it's starting to become an expectation to get certified. And what I like about that is any certification puts your mind into the future and puts your mind into, well, what am I going to do? Oh, and it's a pathway, that you can look into. And so I really appreciate the fact that it's becoming part of our culture. And two, on the list of certifications that you just had up there are several different industries, from healthcare, to welding. I mean, it's not just, if you don't want to go to college, here's an industry certification. It's something that, is helps with employment and helps with your future in whatever career you choose. So keep up the good work there. I enjoy seeing us surpassing goals. So that's good stuff.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, we have a STAR summary, an end-course summary.
So it looks like Dr. Lance Gropel and Dr. James Curitan are going to sit at the table, provide you a snapshot or executive summary of our latest and greatest STAR results, and then we can have a discussion after their presentation.
Yeah, Dr. Crawford, President Washman and the board, we're excited to come to you tonight to share some of our successful student outcomes as it pertains to STAR and EOC. If you'll click to that next slide. Tonight's presentation is going to go over board goal 1 and 2, specific learning targets as it pertains to third grade math and reading. We'll go into all the other STAR performance areas, as well as a specific review of our cohort performance, which aligns apples to apples, how kids perform from one grade to the next.
Okay, so we'll start with the goals that we set a few years ago. We've been reviewing every year. Our first goal is goal 1, which was based on early literacy, so our third grade reading STAR results. For this goal, we wanted to be at 68.7% of our students at approaches by this spring. If you look at the table below, you'll see the targets for all the student groups, and then you'll see that at the end of this year, based on our STAR results, we actually exceeded that target. We were at 73.2% passing for our students that were here all year. And you can see that for the majority of student groups, we actually did hit those targets or exceeded them pretty substantially.
And I know it's pretty common knowledge to all of us, but for those who might be watching for the first time or hearing and see approaches, and that doesn't sound like it's passing, but in the way the state says it, approaches is actually passing.
Correct,
Right.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Approaches is kind of the initial level. That's students are passing at that point, and then it moves up to higher levels of proficiency, meets and masters, which leads us to 1.4. So progress measure 1.4 was actually based on the percent of students that will achieve meets and masters in third grade reading. We wanted to be at 37.9%. By the end of the school year, we're at 46.0. So again, we exceeded the targets pretty significantly, and we exceeded them in almost every student group that we measure in our goals. If we look at goal 2, which was early numeracy, we wanted to see that 74.1% of our third grade math students would pass or be at the approaches level in STAR. We actually came in a little below that. We were at about 70.6%. And then you can see for the majority of our student groups, we were close to where we wanted to be, not where we want to be, but we were approaching that area. And so that's, disappointing. We certainly wanted to hit that target, but we're moving in the direction to start hitting those goals. For progress measure 2.4, we wanted to know about our meets and master students in third grade math. We wanted to be at 43.8% by this spring. We came up just short of that by about 1% of our students. We're at 42.8. We did have some student groups hit their target, and you can see which student groups up there. The ones that we didn't hit our target, we were pretty close overall. Certainly still some work to do, but we're moving in the right direction with math. So we're still working on some recovery in math from COVID, which is consistent with what we're seeing with the state. So now we'll shift and we'll just show you the overall our performance on STAR. We'll compare it to last year and just show you how the state performed as well before we review cohort data. So here we're going to show you all our elementary assessments. We'll just orient you to the table. That far left is going to tell you what assessment we're looking at. We're going to show you the 2021 scores. And for each of the other scores that we're going to talk about, you'll see the approaches, meets, and masters percentages. So the passing and the higher level meets and master scores. 2021 those were our students 2 years ago. 21, 22 were our students last year. And then we gave you the state data just for comparison. It is a lot of data, so I'll just tell you with the state data that for the majority of grades, we were right there within 1 to 2 percentage points, or we actually beat or exceeded the state's performance, if you want to look at that area. But my focus really is on the 21-22 data. This is not apples to apples, which is what we'll look at next. This is comparing last year's third graders to third graders from 2 years ago. We did want to highlight some of the big gains that you see. So you'll see there's 2 different shades of green. The light green is where we outperformed this year by less than 5 points. Anywhere that's at dark green, we outperformed by 5 points or more. So you can see across the board that we outperformed where we were 2 years ago in the majority of our elementary subjects. And I believe it was 4th grade math and then 5th grade reading and 5th grade science. We were right there with or above the state averages. For our middle schools, you can kind of see it was a similar trend. We still had areas, the majority of areas where we improved, not quite as significant improvement, but still improvement nonetheless. We improved in 7th grade math, which I know we always talk about every year. And then you can see how we improved substantially in reading across the board. And then lastly would be our EOCs. So these are primarily our high school subjects, with the exception of Algebra 1, which is taken by some of our middle school students. So the same thing, you can see some improvement, some areas where we improved, and then you can kind of see how we compared to the state. I believe it was U.S. history that actually outperformed, slightly outperformed the state.
Now we're going to transition into the cohort review. I think this is a big highlight, a big celebration as we look at this data. This is a comparison of one student group from 1 year to the next. So we're really looking at a year's worth of growth, which is the greatest measure that we have sole control over. So we'll look starting with the 4th grade and work your way down. You can see the 3 columns there, the 21 star data, and you have 21, 22 star data, and then the difference between the two. So the first column is going to be how they performed in the grade before. Second column is going to be how they performed in the grade this year, and then the difference of the two. I'll just leave it there and let marinate on the far right column, looking at the difference between the two and the successful gains that you're going to see there across the board, with the sole exceptions of our master's students at the 6th grade level. I think this highlights just a lot of great work by our reading staff, not only our teachers, but our supports from the C&I department as we look at curriculum and that sort of thing. I would draw your attention there. It says English 2, but no, there's no English 1 representation, even though that's a subject that we take. The 8th grade reading test is drastically different to the English 1 EOC that they took as freshmen, so it didn't feel like that was a comparison of apples to apples in that one instance. Moving to the math data, Won't see as much green here, but you still see some pretty significant green as you look through this. I'll draw your attention to some areas of growth there in 8th grade math as we look at the approaches and meets numbers going up significantly, as well as the Algebra 1. Also drawing your attention to the 6th and 7th grade math as we look at that data and make plans for the upcoming school year, refining our curriculum and so scope and sequence on how we provide support and intervention for our students, and already have those plans in place to be implemented as we start this upcoming school year. So taking this data in real time and developing action plans to refine our practices to be better as we look for successful student outcomes for 22-23.
Go back to that last slide. So board, one highlight I wanted to give you today is that 8th grade. That's the class of 2026. Remember last year when we had that really huge gap when they were 7th graders? We couldn't figure out what in the world's going on because the math stuff has kind of surprised us a little bit. We had actually been rocking along here, and math had been kind of our torchbearer for our scoring on the accountability system. This year it's going to be reading, obviously, which is a nice, pleasant surprise, Ms. Atkins. Not to say that we underappreciate our efforts in math or need to do better, because we do. But if you remember that 8th grade group, that is the class of 2026, and what they scored last year, that's that 40 in that approaches column where it says 8th grade. They had a 20-point gain in passing in the system, and then a 12 and 3 in meets and masters. And we were all up here kind of puzzled that we've been doing so well in math, and that was the gap year. We were just like, what's going on? So they had a really good recovery year. Conversely, I will say from the superintendency, I'm very concerned at the class of 2028 and the regression we had in the meets and masters in mathematics. And that's a little personal to me, so we need to fix that quickly. Another little thing that I will say is 7th grade kind of pops up again on us in mathematics, being fully transparent, that we had another little dip at that's a class of 2027. As 6th graders, you can see where they were at on the left side, and then we had a 10, 6, and 4-point regression in 7th grade mathematics. So big charge there. We had a big charge this last year to get those cohorts caught up to speed. It looks like we got the class of 2026 caught up to speed with their 8th grade performance. Now I'm looking at Dr. Gropel and Dr. Norman saying that we need to get, not only do we need to make sure that those class of 2028 and 2027 make sure that they're caught up to speed in their new academic year, but get those 6th and 7th grade years bolstered. That's probably of anything on here, all the celebrations and high fives, so the thing we need to work on is that right there. So, and I know y'all know that, but we need to say that publicly, for sure. And our principals need to hear it publicly and work on it specifically. Okay.
Yeah, like I said, we have worked to revamp this summer the 6th and 7th grade specifically, the curriculum and the scope and sequence in which we teach things to get a greater depth of diving deeper into the skills and make sure we have a higher level of mastery before moving on. Spend more time to be really good at something as opposed to hitting the surface level.
Thank you for the presentation. A lot of good data there. Any comments or questions from?
Can we go back to the reading for a minute?
No.
Do we still give a stipend for the math people?
Or to teach HR?
Just a shout out to the reading folks that don't get a stipend. We appreciate them ever so much.
Absolutely. If you're Reading Academy certified, you'll get your little stipend this time. But when you get deeper in the middle school years, they're not getting a stipend.
Just a point of interest.
Well, mine is a point of interest when we talk about testing in general, and I'm very impressed with how well we've done over the past couple of years in light of everything we've gone through. I think that we've done very well. I'm really amazed. I'm concerned about the 3rd grade math and elementary level kids that don't get that foundation, so I'm real concerned about that. But overall, I'm real impressed. I have high standards. I expect us to exceed the state in all areas. So I'll be ecstatic when we get to that point where we look on here and we're exceeding the state on all of these areas. But I think we made great progress, and I think we will continue to improve.
Duly noted and agreed upon that it's probably the best year we've had academically in a decade. I do remember first getting here when we were lagging behind the region.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to compete with the state averages is something that we're really proud of our staff. They were able to accomplish that. And I think there's a lot that goes in that gumbo. I do think that the decision that we made, that the administration made, the board supported, to bring our kiddos back in the fall of 2020 without fighting that virtual, the virtual fight that a lot of other school systems had to fight as well. And I'll say this as well, other than a few folks in our community, we had great support from our parents and from our community in that decision as well. And I think that as we anticipated, I don't want to say gambled because it wasn't a gamble, but we kept people fairly healthy. That was a main deal the last 2 years. But then again, academically speaking, maybe that slide's not as present in Tyler ISD kids as it is elsewhere. But there's other good stories across the state as well. There's a lot of resiliency. And I'll just say this, I don't think 45-45, House Bill 45-45 was the magic potion for this. We still had absenteeism. We had a hard time finding subs. We had a hard time staffing our 45-45 efforts. That's why the ESSER money has not been spent. There's been a lot of rhetoric coming out of Austin especially. Well, schools have enough money. They ain't spent their money yet. Well, tell us where to find the people. I'm about to go off on a soapbox here if I don't watch out. But in saying this, Tyler ISD staff that came to work when they were healthy, when they could, and they weren't fighting off sickness, our kids coming to school, which we need to improve on both of those. Attendance matters. If we can work on attendance with our adults coming and not relying upon substitute teachers to teach our kids, and our parents getting our kids to school, we're going to have a great school system. That's all it's going to take, because I think we've got curriculum systems in place, and our pedagogy is good in a lot of areas now. So in saying that, I do think that's probably the reason why you're seeing this, is that the decisions y'all made in 2020, we made in 2020, in the fall, was to go ahead and come back. So there we go.
9 years ago when I came on the board, and I was always, proud Tyler kid, I was really surprised to know that we lagged behind the state year by year. I mean, it was pretty common. And I think you talk about a magic potion, and I think one of them, Dr. Crawford, is consistency. Consistency from your seat. I think you being here for 9 years now, or going on 9 years. I know superintendents don't really do that these days. So, we came up with plans, and you came in when we were pretty low. We had 11 schools on IR. That's a lot, and
I really wanted to come to East Texas, and I really wanted to come to Tyler.
Well, I can tell.
I don't know if I really knew what I was getting into.
Well,
the board at that time gave me an opportunity to take my time and not do anything rash. We had 4 schools to reconstitute. I'm sorry to counter you on this, but we had 4 schools to reconstitute because of continuous low performance. That was, come on, Rojo, it was Douglas, it was Griffin, it was Pete, and it was Orr, right? Okay, I think we got those right. So we were forced to do that, and that was a tough thing. And the staff, central office staffs, not too many of you left. Dr. Ward, I think it's me, you, Mr. Jones was early, and then Ms. Cokers has been with us. We had to make up our mind that we didn't want to keep doing that. That reconstitution stuff is tough. So, but kudos to the staff. And I think y'all are going to be pleased when the accountability ratings come out. I can't say enough about what Christy Roach has done at Douglas. That's one of the reconstituted schools that we have. We are really excited without August 15th getting here quick enough. Isn't that the date, Dr. Curidan?
Yep.
Yeah. Do we have a board meeting or do we have convocation the day before?
Correct.
So we're pretty confident we're going to have some really good stories coming out to where some of these traditionally underperforming pockets that we had are now actually going to be rated as B campuses. So we're very excited about that, and the data's in front of you as well.
Well, and the data in front of us, a lot of people might say, well, of course, we're coming back to school out of COVID, everybody's going to have gains. But when you're that far behind the state and then you jump that gap and all of a sudden you're even, you made up a lot of ground. You did better than your peers during that time, and I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of, like you talked about, all the staff that worked through pretty tough environment. And oh, by the way, in 2016, I think maybe we just said, you know what, we're just going to focus on successful student outcomes, and that's going to be our motto. I can't remember if that was 2016, but it was somewhere around there. And of course, after that, we had to deal with all sorts of other stuff. But when you keep your focus on those things, good things happen. So
no doubt.
We've handled other stuff, but we haven't taken our eye off the academic ball. And I'm proud that you're able to see us through that, and I'm looking forward to going from good to great. Right. And I think we're in a position to do just that.
So we're saying, a lot of accolades are being shared up here, but I'll say this from the dais: effective school board governance, y'all's stability and y'all's professionalism from the dais does trickle down. You can look at across the state and the issues that they're having at the board table, in the communities. We are really focused on academics and student success. So thank y'all for being the people that y'all are and the community that we live in. Y'all have challenging stuff. We have challenging stuff we have to work on, but it is certainly not near what other communities are having to deal with. And that goes with county leadership. It goes with city leadership as well, because a lot of the things during COVID were, Dallas ISD had to fight a lot of things that were coming out of Dallas County. And they're having to fight with something, and they're probably going to be dealing with that for a while. And we didn't have Judge Moran dictating what we should do in our schools. We didn't have Mayor Hines and then later Mayor Warren dictating what we need to be doing in our schools. They let y'all, the elected officials, govern the school system y'all are elected for. So that goes a long way. So I think our community can be proud, and it's not just a district thing. This is a Tyler thing.
All right. Great place. Well, thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions before we let y'all go? Good job. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Lance walking out of here smiling like he had something to do with it.
Yeah.
You're down to maintain it, buddy.
Okay, moving on to business, legal, finance consent agenda. We do have some gifts and donations we should pull. That's item B. And aside from that, if anybody else has anything they want to pull or have questions about, speak now or forever hold your peace. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion on items A through J with the exception of B.
Mr. Chair, I move that we have consent agenda approval of items A through J except B.
Great, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
I do have 2 seconds. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, the motion carries. Okay, item B, consider approval of gifts and donations, something we are happy to do every month, it seems like. We have another awesome donation coming our way.
Page
26
of your packet. Now, the ever benevolent Tyler ISD Foundation, the amount of $25,000 for the Career and Technology Center for purchase of CTE equipment. Mr. Brown, just real quickly, can you brief the board about what equipment exactly that could be used for?
And that's money that's flowing from the Ray H. Mark Foundation. I will mention that through the foundation. A manual mill instead of a computer numeric control mill. The industry tells us they want students to be able to manually mill solids. So this is a brand new piece of equipment that's come out of industry request for purchasing.
Okay. Tell me again the group that actually.
Ray H. Mark Foundation.
Ray H. Mark Foundation. Okay. Yep. Here we go.
That's awesome news. Do I have a motion on that item?
I move we approve the Tyler ISD Foundation gift.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Ayes have it, and the motion carries. Thank you, Tyler ISD Foundation. Okay, now moving on to the curriculum and instruction consent agenda. I'll go ahead and take a motion to approve items A through I there.
I move that we approve items A through I.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Moving on to our superintendent and staff reports. We have a report on our cooperative purchasing fees.
On page 57 of your packet, this is an annual presentation to the board that came out of statute a few years back for y'all to be alerted, not to vote upon, what the various fees for these cooperative purchasing programs that we participate in. So there's things like Choice Partners, there's DIR, there's PACE, there's TIPS TAPS, there's the Region Service Center 11, there's EdTech, there's the various fees listed on page 57 that don't have fees, and then some that actually have fees. Education Service Center, Region 7, that's out of Kilgore. TASB Buy Board, that's another one that we participate in. That's an $800 membership fee that was on there. For some reason, a legislator decided we needed to, by golly, post all these fees that these purchasing co-ops are making off school systems, and it's really negligible in the savings that we have to be a member of these purchasing co-ops. It really is invaluable because everyone knows that scale allows you to purchase here. So whenever the school districts of Texas are a part of these co-ops, you pay a small minimal fee, $800, let's say that to TASB Buy Board, to really get a lot of discounts on services and materials and resources that we can pass on to our campuses and the district.
Okay. Thank you. We have been alerted.
Okay, you're alerted.
Any comments or questions? Okay, we have a DAEP overview, which stands for Disciplinary Alternative Education Program.
Yeah, we have Director of Constituent Services, John Johnson, and then Deputy Superintendent Chief of Staff, Ronald Jones, making an appearance. Seems like he makes an appearance about once a semester to present at the table. But we appreciate Mr. Johnson doing the job he does at Constituent Services, and then Mr. Jones as well. They're going to present to the board today about our disciplinary program that we have here, and then answer any questions you may have in regard to the good things that come out of our DAEP and our other issues that we may have.
Board President Washman, trustees, Dr. Crawford, it is my pleasure, along with this debonair dude that's next to me, Mr. John Johnson, to bring you this 21-22 update on DAEP. I'm going to start by giving you the overview of our DAEP program. Of course, it is a choice campus of sorts, not having a specific attendance zone. It spreads district-wide. Student placement or attendance is governed by choices that carry consequences as outlined in the Student Code of Conduct, which represents a subset of Chapter 37 of the Texas Education Code, which addresses safe schools, student discipline, and behavior management. Having an effective DAEP program permits campuses to focus heavily on quality Tier 1 instruction and successful student outcomes. A student's length of stay at DAEP is determined by the offense and impacted by student performance, attendance, and programmatic completion. Each placement hearing concludes with an opportunity for timely parental guardian appeal handled through Mr. Johnson and Constituent Services. Typically, the number of students enrolled at DAEP increases as the school year progresses. Additionally, restorative practices founded on Stephen Covey's The Leader in Me, 7 Habits of Effective People are integrated in the DAEP program, just as they are district-wide K-8. Part of our responsibility as educators is to produce responsible and productive citizens. To quote Dr. King, intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. Now, Mr. Johnson will speak briefly regarding some of the specifics of our performance this year with the DAEP program.
As we said, good evening, Dr. Crawford and Board President Washman. Pleasure to be back in front of you again. One of the things that we talk about is that under the supervision and guidance of our current superintendent and administration, we've been tasked with making sure that we are not merely warehousing people at DAEP, but we are, giving the kids the tools that they need to become successful, to correct the poor behavior patterns, and be able to not only self-regulate, but to become better students. And so in doing that, we have several campus-based interventions that have really blossomed over this past school year concerning self-regulation, intervention supports that include but are not limited to increased mental health counselors, and also better access to campus counselors, as well with some of those tools that the campus counselors have to be able to deal with students that are showing signs and patterns of, more concerning behaviors than just the normal, disobedience. Tyler ISD schools continue to implement a systematic approach to responding to all students with challenging behaviors that includes character development, education opportunities such as character counts, zones of regulation, second steps, and the Leader in Me program. Now, in regards to monitoring disproportionality, we consistently do that in looking at current data, reflecting on the data, and working across departments. Being able to staff regularly with the Director of Academic Intervention, Ms. Dykeman, and the Special Education Program. I know a lot of times we only are concerned with the offense and what happens and seeing the person go to DAP or receive a consequence. But the board needs to be able to know, so that if you're ever posed with these questions, that we have a constant process that is worked out. Nobody just is thrown to DAP overnight. If a person hits DAP in Tyler Independent School District, they've earned that trip. And we've exhausted many steps. And not only do we have those steps covered, but we verify before we do placement that those steps have been done. Also, we should note that we do not compromise the sanctity of the classroom. We feel that the students who come and are compliant have a right to be there without being afraid of their safety or for teachers not being able to instruct. And so we carry that commitment that the board has mandated, as well as the superintendent, that we have positive, safe environments in our classrooms. And anybody that presents a challenge to that will find their way out of them. Okay, next line. Also, and I'll just kind of go through that workflow. The workflow incident happens. It's determined whether or not, depending on the level of it or the nature of it, it can be handled with classroom management all the way up to a referral to the office where the administrator or assistant principal will have to intervene. A lot of that is determined whether or not it's a mandatory offense or discretionary offenses. We added here, just as food for thought, discretionary placement for 2021 to 22 was 333. We had 9 expulsions, and then we had 344 mandatory. And when you look at our expulsions, that's only 1.3% of the total disciplinary actions that happen. Okay, next one. And then we passed along here just to show recidivism rates for students assigned to DAP, and you will see that it kind of goes along, campus guidelines. You can look at some of our, you can tell our specialty schools there with like ECHS, of course they have lower numbers, and then you can see how it's actually broken down. Just food for thought for you to have in regards to second-time offenders and those who have 3, and then I think we had 1 student that had a 4th placement. Okay. Like we said before, the DAP culture is designed to teach accountability as well as self-worth, self-regulation, but one of the good things that has happened, and it falls right into the line of accomplishments, we have shored up and improved communication between DAP and the campuses. The law mandates transition meetings are to happen as these kids are re-entering the campuses. Mr. Mitch Rhodes and Patrina Pinkerton, the two co-coordinators, have done a great job at really making sure that that information is presented, that we discuss things that are going on with these students, we find resources for them while they're there, but also that they communicate appropriately with the campuses. And then we make the appropriate moves as they re-enter their assigned campuses. Questions for anybody?
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Anybody have any questions, comments?
Of course, I have a question. Do you look at any correlation between the discipline problems on a campus and the academic rating of that particular campus? Have you done any correlative studies in regards to that, the level of discipline problems that's reported versus how they're excelling academically for that particular campus? The reason I ask that is because I've gotten concerns from teachers in the classroom that are having problems on a particular campus with kids that seem to be out of hand, and they feel like nothing is being done to control it so that they can actually teach in the classroom. So that's the reason I'm concerned about that, because I do, and you addressed it in your presentation, that our goal is to make sure that they have a good academic environment to learn within. If there is a challenge within the classroom with discipline, that affects the academic ability of that teacher, well, not the academic ability of the teacher, but the academic environment for those kids to be able to learn if she has a lot of discipline problems in the classroom. And looking at the data, I see one of the campuses that was a major concern. It's not being reported on the data that there's a big problem, but yet again, I hear that there is. Okay, so and it may not be at your level. It may be Mr. Jones can address some of these concerns, but I hear it all the time from parents and teachers.
That data was just those who went to DAEP, right?
Right.
So the chain, the report would have to come from the teacher to administration, and they would have to, that workflow would have to occur.
And maybe that Mr. Jones can address that, because that's been some of the concern from the teachers that have talked to me about discipline in the classroom.
And that is the beauty of data. We get a lot of what we hear about what's happening on some of our campuses, and I know we're sitting tight right now waiting on the state to release official results, but everything that we've seen thus far, and I think I know the particular campus that you're thinking of, that we will be pleasantly not surprised, but we will know that academics did indeed take place on that campus. Yes, there were disciplinary issues on that particular campus, just as there are district-wide. But this thing takes a village, and that village starts home, and then we pick the baton up once they cross the threshold of the school. And I think with that being said, we deal with the students as they bring the disciplinary issues to us. And yes, indeed, we don't just automatically, arbitrarily just take that young person and say you automatically go. They have to earn the right to get there, and there are many steps that are taken that take place prior to that happening. In addition, to them going there, the counseling there, and there are mentors of a lot of those students that try and get them to focus in on academics. And yes, there will be those that go over to the DAEP. But to answer your question, whether or not there is a study or anything that's been done with the number of kids going to DAEP from a particular campus and the overall academic rating or performance of that campus, we haven't done that because we tend to focus specifically on the students there. And like Mr. Johnson said earlier, we do not permit one student to negatively impact the educational opportunities of the 22 to 25, however many more there are in that particular class. And so I think at the end of the day, we are will remain focused on successful student outcomes, and we will meet that bar. We won't allow students to permit us to cause us not to get there.
I have great appreciation for what you said. In relation to that, I think that it may be more on the campus level as far as feedback regarding the process on that particular campus that's occurring with that particular student. For instance, teacher send the student to the principal or whomever, however it's designed on that particular campus. Teacher gets student back in the classroom. Teacher doesn't know what the results is. So there may be just a breakdown on certain campuses regarding the communication process between the teacher and the principal, and keeping the teacher in the loop so that she doesn't feel like she is not aware of what discipline plan is being in place for that particular student that she's having to send out of the classroom. That may be
I
that.
can see how that can happen once things get really busy, and duly noted, and we will make certain that that is a focus there, that we close that communication gap, that if and when there's a young person that is referred to the office, that the consequence or the result of that referral is communicated back to the instructor. I do agree that that is an important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, because I think that the teachers felt like they didn't have any control of their classroom as far as discipline or anything like that, because they never got the feedback as to what the plan was. So maybe that's the level that we're looking at this point. Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Jones, you and I are old
I am
principals. Former principals.
One may be older than the other, maybe.
So
yeah.
back in the day, you and I, when we served together, we didn't have all this fancy technology. For one, everybody else did, Dallas ISD did. We were still doing the old triplicate discipline referrals, to where one copy was put in a file, another copy was sent home, another copy was sent to the maybe there's like more than triple. There's like 4 or 5 copies on things because your data person had to enter them. So what's the process? The process looks like now, since we don't really have the triplicates. Because one thing that made you have to think as a teacher, and we're all former teachers, and we all had the same issues, some more than others, in regard to the campuses that we served. But I was a high school teacher at Euless Trinity, and had a lot of Tongan kids that loved them to death, but they were behavior problems. My principal said, okay, I'll take care of it, but you have to write a discipline referral. If it's that important that you can't handle it, if it's that out of control, I need you to do that so that we can start the process. And it can't be this thing to say, get out, go see a principal. That is poor classroom management. Describe to the board what that looks like now that we've moved away from handwritten discipline referrals, and now we have, you pick up a phone and say, come get John out of my class now, I'm about to wring his neck. So what does that look like now? So maybe we can start working on that, or describe that.
Okay. Well, one of the situations we have now is that, just like what he was speaking to, you will have those pockets where you might have complaints from a teacher, but when you look into it, then you see where the kids had X amount of infractions, but you ask the teacher for the referrals or the documentation on it, and they say, well, I didn't write them up every time. A couple times was just this, or a couple times was that. The process is, if you fill out a referral, it should travel with that student to the administrator. Once the administrator dispenses whatever that consequence is, be it counseling, verbal interaction, ISS, OSS, whatever it is, they confirm, with the parent, they notate that on there, and the normal process is that the teacher receives a copy.
So it's still old school.
Yeah.
In triplicate?
No, it's not in triplicate because
it's just a piece of paper.
Majority of now, it's a piece of paper and it's online, because we encourage them to type them in. Of course, you still have some that write and do that. But
so I guess where I was going with this was, that was your ticket back to class.
Yeah.
Was that referral that said on there, and it could be anything. Let's remember this now. We're not talking about mandatory expulsions, but we start talking on page 25 of the Student Code of Conduct, a level 1 offense. A consequence can be a classroom self-management techniques, cooling off time, or brief timeout period in accordance with the law. I've done that with a kid in my class. Hey, why don't you just take the rest of her class period off and sit over there in the corner of my office? And then let's don't have this happen again because I don't want you in my office. I mean, those little things like that. So a conference or a phone call with a parent or guardian. Let's remember that just because we're frustrated with a kid doesn't mean that we're just going to wind up just throwing everything we got at them. And there are certain things we can't. You can't send every kid to DAP. Just on first. So in saying that, I think what we need to encourage our administrators, Mr. Jones and Dr. Gropel, along with our chief school officers back there, even though y'all are focused on instruction, keep focusing on instruction, it's working, is to make sure that there's a ticket to get back into that class, and that ticket is that we're communicating back to those teachers. And it might just be that at an administrative conference, I did call the parent, and if we keep hearing these complaints that they're not getting any feedback, well, they're getting feedback, it's just not the feedback they want to hear, that kid's going to be removed from my class for the remainder of the semester. Sometimes that can happen, most of the time it's not going to happen. So we'll work on that if that's something we need to take care of as a kind of a ticket to get back in that class as well.
And I think you hit the nail on the head. Most of the time, I'm just upset because you didn't do what I wanted you to do. And so sometimes teachers get upset and say you didn't do anything, but it was really, once you leave my classroom, I have no control over the consequences because I let go of that, of my authority when I sent you somewhere else. So I have to deal with what you meted out as punishment, and we get mad because I want him gone and I want him gone now, and you just talk to him. So I figure you didn't do anything. So it works both ways. You have to, it was what you said at the beginning. Discipline starts within the classroom. And I have to know how to handle my classroom, and a lot of people don't, and we just can't put them out every time they sneeze. And so that's challenging for teachers. And so we have to work on disciplining our classrooms.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in seeing over the next couple of 3 years the improvements that we're having in some of our clusters to where we used to struggle, and the feeder patterns to where those kids are now matriculating up to the middle school and then to the high school. And that's to both high schools. Because no longer can we say, oh, the kids from X school struggle academically. Well, we've got data that says they're starting to improve academically. I'm really saying that if we can get our middle schools going in the right direction behaviorally and academically, that those crutches aren't going to be there like they were in the past. So we're on to something here, but certainly with some of the transitions and assignments, we've kind of moved some puzzle pieces around. The expectations are very clear to those individuals, Mr. Newsom, that lead those campuses, that we want things run a certain way on the discipline end and on the instructional end as well. And they both go together, as Ms. Atkins was talking about as well. So it's a good conversation to have. And it's the kind of conversation y'all should be having in support of administration and us trying to improve that. But we will plead in front of the cameras. We need our parents to help us.
Definitely. Definitely.
We need y'all to be arm in arm with us in making sure that there is school-appropriate behavior. That's right. School-appropriate behavior. And that was one thing I always used to tell students when I was a principal or a teacher. May be allowed at home. This might be allowed at home, but it is not going to be allowed at school. And usually parents understand that if you can talk to them. And hopefully that there are more times than not when you do communicate with the parent, they're usually embarrassed about it.
Yeah.
When you fail to communicate with the parent is when they're surprised. That's when it turns a whole different level.
Yeah, we had the if you get in trouble at school, you get in trouble at home rule when I was growing up. So
no, that doesn't happen anymore.
Bless Manny McDowell.
Anyway,
1980.
Any other comments or questions on DAEP? Okay. Thank you all for doing what you do.
Thank you.
Stay there real. Hey, the 2 J's.
2 J's.
Yeah, student code of conduct. Just sit there. It's a first reading. Let's just stay there. Is there any tweaks? It's a non-legislative year. Is there any tweaks that you can think of off the top of your head in regard to this? Okay.
We basically only have 2 things. And we did that, like you said, it's a non-legislative year, but we did take this time, and kudos to Mr. Hardy We sent over everything to Mr. Hardy. He and I worked together and took a good look at it, and he cleaned up a couple of areas. But the two things that we wanted to do this year going into the 22-23 school year, we felt that the vaping issue has become so significant, especially when you look at the damage medically that it is doing to the bodies of young people. You've got young people that are on transplant tables that are flatlining, after vaping. And so we took that from the way it previously said as a level 1, that you had to do it twice to get, sent to DAP. And so under his guidance, Mr. Hardy's guidance, we got it approved to be able to make it, we can place now on your own possession of the vape. It doesn't have to be THC. Use of the vape or possession of the vape on campus at TISD now will mean a trip to DAP. So that's one of the things we did. And because of the uptick in fights and violent behavior on campuses and extreme amount of planned fights that cause major campus disruptions. And it's important to note that when we say major campus disruption, we're not talking about two people that tie up for a minute or two shoving in the bathroom. We're talking about planned fights where there is significant injury. And also one of the standards that we have set internally is if it requires the assistance of multiple administrators as well as law enforcement, then you have constituted a major campus disruption. And so we have now made that where that will be a placeable offense on the first time that you commit it. So those those are the two changes that we have internally initiated for ourselves and then vetted through our legal to make sure that we would be in compliance with any state law and not to commit any infractions.
Another plea to the public that is watching tonight in this very lightly attended end of July board meeting. Vaping is an issue. And if I could recommend anything at all, is these dadgum vape stores that we're seeing pop up in about every storefront. Rachel Barber's shaking her head. I know we're serious if Rachel Barber's shaking her. She knows. That is an issue with our youth. I said it once, I'll say it again until y'all tell me to quit saying that. You can't buy bourbon in Tyler, Texas, but our youth can get a hold of these dadgum vape e-cigarettes pretty dadgum easy. I'm not saying we should have bourbon in Tyler, Texas, so. But I'm just saying, where are our priorities at in regard to that? I understand it's commerce, I understand it's capitalism, and I understand there's a lot of that goes on with it. But there is a public health issue going on. I don't even know if it's more extreme than what we have with cigarettes, to be honest with you. But this is an issue, especially when again, I'm going to use the F word, fentanyl. That is the thing. Danny Brown's shaking his head back there. We're helpless. We are educators. We try to enforce the student code of conduct where we can, but we're talking about health of young people. So please, whatever help y'all can give us, legislators, city leaders, county leaders, we sure would appreciate that. And I think a lot of superintendents that I've talked with would, feel the same way.
Okay.
Thank you for, I'm sorry.
Go for it.
One question on the two changes that you had, I think I lost it, that you said that we had in the code of conduct.
Yes, ma'am.
Will those changes be articulated to the parents and the students other than just in the handed out book?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We plan to do that through Jennifer, similar to what she just did with some of the changes with the parent handbook and regarding to clothing.
Okay. Thank you.
Really appreciate y'all's support in the way we handle our discipline. We'll come up here and present and communicate this to y'all as much as y'all want, because it does give us an opportunity to discuss this publicly. Maybe in a September or October meeting next time when there's a lot of folks here. What's that? We'll give you a spring update too, but we need to do it when we think there's, March or April, maybe a progress report.
Well, you can't have the academic growth and the successes that we have had and not be serious about discipline. So I think ever since we've set up here, you do what you need to do to get your classroom in order, and you've got our support.
And I think that the discipline will allow us to get above state academically.
Yeah, I think the good thing I've seen is we're doing a combination of a lot of different things to get to an end result. And through the years, at times, it was like, oh, no discipline, you know? Well, that's not going to work. Okay, we tried that a few times, it seems like. And then, you know, maybe you have an extreme. I haven't seen that since I've been here, but we've been on a shift toward no discipline for 30 or 40 years now. But the zero doesn't work. So, but I love the way at DAEP you're trying to change people for the better. It's not just prison. You're trying to change people and make them better students when they come out of it. And I think that's what we've got to do. So I think y'all are right on it. Good job.
Yeah.
We appreciate y'all.
And Latrina Pinkerton. Just remember those two names.
Great job.
Yeah, we're so happy with them, and they are some happy people changing kids' hearts over there at DAP. They love it over there.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we also have another local policy, CFC, CKC, and DH local. First reading. I want to say KFC.
Yeah, as usual, if you've got any questions about those policies before you get to second reading, which will be on August 4th, that's our workshop, please contact myself or if there's an administrator listed in there about a contact. I think Dr. Gropel is our policy contact these days, but you're also more than welcome to call me or call Tasha if it's a finance issue, or even Mr. Jones if it's an HR issue.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, August 4th, we have a board workshop. And then we have School is Cool, summer school graduation August 4th. August 15th, we have the first day of school. Coming up quick. And then we have a regular meeting on August 22nd.
Where does summer go?
And then there's convocation somewhere in between there too. So that's future business. I'll go ahead and entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move that we adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? This meeting is adjourned.